What's up? This is EJK. This is going to be a PvZ video today between Stats and Sue played in Pro League. This was when Stats all killed SKT. And I wanted to do this matchup because Stats has been very dominant as a Protoss player since Legacy of the Void started. And as a Terran player, you don't get a chance really to take a look at other matchups in the game. The Terran world does not have anything about Protoss and Zerg related, so I think it's just a cool thing to be able to examine a player like Stats and what makes him so dominant in this PvZ matchup. In this game was a very close game, and I would say that Stats didn't do anything very special to win the game. Rather, he did a lot of things that were unspecial, and that may seem very simple in principle, but are often very tough decisions and difficult things to deal with during the later stages of the game. And there is a turning point in this game where I think Stats, Sue and Stats were making both very good, they both had very good scouting, and they both had very good reads due to the scouting, but the point of no return really happens, I'll point it out later, around the 4th base timing of Stats though. And all from there, it started just going downhill for Sue, and Stats started to take a much more respectable lead before closing the game out. So Stats right here, he scouts the fast 3rd base by Sue, and his response is going to be to play. He's not going to try to cut any corners. What he does do though is rally his adept across the map, which I understand the reasoning. It's because he scouts a fast 3rd base, and it's a good, strong, solid timing as well. However, when you don't have a mothership core and you only have one gateway and your only unit is an adept, it makes your base very susceptible for lings to run by. We see Sue on the minimap. His lings avoided the path of the adept, and he actually completely Sue knew the exact timing of an adept scout that Stats could possibly have done, and so he did a very good job at avoiding the adept, and as a result he gets to go into the base and basically knows that he can drone up very, very hard and take a 4th base. So very good scouting information by Sue here. This is where he's able to adapt his play to be a lot more greedy. He's going to be cutting a lot more corners, and he also knows the kind of tech that Stats is starting to switch into as well. Now Stats here has opted to go for a very fast Stargate play and to get a very fast Oracle. The Oracle doesn't end up doing too much damage, but a good thing about the Oracle is that it's impossible to kill in the earlier stages of the game, and due to its fast mobility and its revelation spell, it's able to get a very good scouting of the Zerg's base from multiple angles, so that you almost always know how to react whenever you have an Oracle using revelation around important parts of the Zerg's base. So we see here, although the Oracle doesn't do any damage, he sees queens, he sees a spore crawler, so he sees pretty defensive stuff, and he knows that Sue has ling speed. What he hasn't seen yet is Overlord speed, and he hasn't seen a Roach Warren. He hasn't seen any indication of massing up of a lot of units as well. He just saw a couple queens. He didn't see a big flood of lings or roaches on the way, so he's very safe in taking the 3rd base right now. Sue, on the other hand, he's droning up like crazy. He's at 1 gas right now, and he has about 53 drones, and he's making 6 more. So he's essentially rushed up to saturation on all 3 of his bases to maximize mineral income. Stats has done the same. We see he only has 2 gas taken, and there was a little screenshot over the natural where he wasn't even mining any gas. See, there's no gas. There's nothing being mined over there. And I don't think the 4th gas finished just yet either. But Stats not really needing to rush up to his 5th and 6th gas anytime soon, mostly because he himself is also, he knows that Su is powering up, so Stats is going to react accordingly and also power up in a similar manner, doing things such as skipping gateway unit production in favor of more infrastructure, and keeping the chrono boost on all of his Nexus if he so chooses to. This is another bit of scouting that Su is doing with this Ling drop. It basically is telling Su what kind of unit comp Stats has. If Stats was going for a very fast air transition for whatever reason, this would definitely have detected it. Instead, Su sees about 5 stalkers, and he gets going to the natural. He sees a robotics facility. He's able to kill a couple probes, but all in all, at the end of the day, when Su sees everything, he's going to assume that Stats is essentially playing very normal based play. He's not trying to go for any tricky strategy by any means. Second drop doesn't go in because Su is just checking to see where Stats' army was and if there's a little bit of defense left over. There was. Stats really likes to use 3 stalkers to defend Overlord drops. Just having them already warped in and in position to intercept Overlord drops seems to be an effective way to deal with them. Although Su wasn't able to get a lot of damage done with the Overlord Scout, he himself is still droning up like crazy. He's almost at 80 drones, and his 4th base is finished, and he's been mining the gas at the 4th base for a long time. Su's economy is very, very strong at this point, and he's able to just kind of stockpile the gas, make a lot of Hydralisks, and then also get ready for the eventual Lurker transition. Stats decides to go for this kind of pre-Lurker timing. Although he's pushing out without a Mothership core, he is not ready to commit yet with this attack. Instead, it's just to force units to be made for Su, force the Lurkers to be made as soon as possible, and to just put some pressure on Su as well, and to clear up some creep. This is essentially a pre-Lurker timing because the Lurkers aren't out yet, and there's no reason for Su to have had any reason to make any Lurkers up until this point. So this just gives Su a reason to make some Lurkers and scooch around with his army. Very wisely, Stats decides to back up before overcommitting. So overall, I think that was a very intelligent poke that was well worth the extra APM from Stats. Stats has not started to take a 4th base yet either, while Su is taking his 5th base. So Stats is also deciding not to play very spread out, and he doesn't want to try to rush into taking a 4th base because it'll keep him more exposed. So he decides to start to take his 4th base relatively soon. He knows that Su's army is on... Alright, let's see. So he knows that Su's army is on this side of the map, and he's going to take his 4th base on the other side of the map. And he also has a Warp Prism on this side of the map, so that Su doesn't really have enough units to stay on this side, and to loop around and attack here, and to defend the Warp Prism counterattack as well. So the units are spread out in Stats' favor, in my opinion. And what Stats exhibits here is an amazing display of patience. He is so close to Su's army, and Su's army is very close to Stats' base as well. But Stats hold positions, and he simply waits. He also waits with with his warp prism as well. So this is the real turning point of the game, where everything Stats does is about to snowball. Like, he's just kind of getting everything into position before he says go. He has enough units and defense at his natural. His fourth base is going down as well because Sue's army is away from the fourth base of where Stats is taking it. And he's also gearing up for a counterattack that we see towards the right hand side of the map. And it's just a pure Zealot warp in. There's multiple Zealot rounds were warped in there. And he's essentially going to attack with the Zealots and take advantage of a situation coming up. Oh, I completely missed it too. So, like, the DTs here, man, this is so we have to back up a little bit and see when this contain starts, and we have to track the story of this Overseer, Mr. Overseer over here, right over here. So we see that the Overseer is over here. Something's happening. Some attacking is going on, and all of a sudden, the Overseer is gone. Sue ended up miscontrolling it into Stats' army, and he loses the only Overseer. Now, what does Stats do? Well, what does Sue do? He immediately starts 2 more Overseers because he knows that DTs are a problem. What does Stats do? He warps in DTs to take advantage of the lack of detection. And 3 DTs here, and everything starts to go downwards. Sue is forced to give up his position. He is also getting under attack by a huge Zealot warp-in round that was built up over a large period of time. His main army is in retreat, and all while this is happening, Stats' fourth base is going down. So, in about a minute, I would say the momentum of this game changed in favor of Stats. However, Sue did have a very large economy, so although he took a lot of losses, he still has the economy to continue the game. He's still on 5 bases, whereas Stats is taking his 4th base. His main, natural, and 3rd base are going to be mining out soon, especially his 3rd base because he took his 3rd base very fast. But same with Sue, his 3rd base is going to be mining out a lot faster as well. So really at this point, Sue is on about like 2.5 bases worth of mineral income, whereas Stats is on about 1.5 to a little bit below 2. This Mutalisk switch is the result of Sue's ginormous economy, deciding to go into tech switch instead of committing more to Hydro Lurker, Ling Comp, or to try to get into Hive Tech as well. This map is not favorable for being able to tech up into higher tech units and to afford them with a good economy, to be able to defend that good economy, to be able to afford those units as well. Sue kind of made a little bit of a mistake here by not being able to multitask his army correctly, and there are a lot of things going on right now. But this attack right here came a little bit late, as well as the place that Sue decided to attack as well. So right now there is an attack going on in the natural, and the Mutalisks were harassing the 4th base. If we go back to right before all this action happened, so while the Mutalisks are over here at the natural, they're going to be rotating from the natural to the main, from the natural to, oops, that's the eraser, from the natural to the main, to the 3rd, to the 4th. That's the direction that the Mutalisks are going in. Now the direction that Sue's army is, or the location rather, is in this area. And we see the Protoss army is kind of in the middle of Sue's army and the Mutalisks, and the Protoss army is chasing towards the Mutalisks to try to cut them off. So what Sue should have done is to take advantage of the Mutalisks drawing Stats' army back this way, and he should have sent his army towards the 4th base right now. The 4th base is the most undefended location. The natural is the fastest rush distance, so Su would have been able to get to the natural faster than the 4th base, but hitting the 4th base would have been a lot more effective than attacking the natural right away, because the Mutalisks are moving all of the Protoss army into this position. So the place that Su attacks, he pretty much baited, or essentially lured Stats' army into the position that Su then attacks. And so he's not attacking where Stats' army is, rather than attacking where Stats' army is not. So we see here Stats' army is backing up into the natural, and Su's army is still in a defensive posture, and it's defending nothing at this point. And the 4th base is relatively undefended. Stats' entire army is in between his main, natural, and 3rd right now. And if there was a Ling Flood, just pure Lings and the Mutalisks, that would have been more than enough to take out the Nexus. Instead, upon seeing that Stats' army is now shifted from the natural base to the 3rd to 4th base location, Su decides to attack the natural base again. Now this attack seems kind of haphazard. He's essentially attacking his opponent when Stats is caught out of position, but Stats is also countering Su's attack with a counterattack of his own from the War Prism that has not been cleaned up yet. And the Lurker Ling attack doesn't have any anti-air, so the Phoenixes are eventually able to clean up the Overseer. And this attack for Su, he basically committed to an attack to kill a base that wasn't really mining at all, and he didn't kill any important tech structures either. So this trade is definitely favoring Stats. And now Su is deciding to go back. A lot of uncertainty with what Su wants to do, which part of Protoss that Su wants to deal with at a time. And this is another huge mistake by Su, trying to engage against these Stalkers before all of his units are in position. And Stats, this is what Su should have done that Stats is now doing. While parts of Su's army are out of position now over here, Stats' army was over here defending, and now he's moving it closer to attack Su's newest base. So there's a lot of army movement going on around these last kind of 5 minutes deciding the game, and Stats really shows his mastery at moving his army around in locations to both successfully attack and defend multiple spots around the map. And Su kind of falls apart because of that. But, so Su displaying some impatience here. We see that on the minimap, Su's army is swarming back to the natural to protect his lair. His army's going there, there, and there to defend against the Protoss army. And what Su ends up doing is he engages too fast with the Mutalisks. So the Mutalisks are here, the lair goes down no matter what. And Su is trying to do what he can with the Mutalisks and pick off Zealots. And then he tries to engage a very big Stalker ball, about 18 Stalkers against 16 Mutas. The Stalkers are going to win that, especially because the Stalkers have much better upgrades as well. So Su decides to attack as soon as possible rather than waiting for the rest of his army to come back. That would have been a much wiser decision, and to try to trap the army, and then to also leave some of his army behind to defend against the inevitable counterattack. Like, upon analysis of the game, that would have been the correct thing to do, but those kinds of decisions are very difficult to make in the heat of the moment when all of this action is going on. So although we have a lot of time to think about what the best action could have been, these players here don't, and Stats is making these decisions. He's basically making really good decisions with attacking and not overextending his army. Like, Su just completely, he kind of got, I don't know, for lack of better words, lazy. He wasn't splitting his army up properly. He trades base for base, which is, nope, he does not trade base for base. He's very, very indecisive. He's been going back and forth with his army these past couple minutes, trying to decide, like, trying to clean up the Protoss army, trying to be aggressive, and not quite succeeding on any fronts. Su also lost a lot of his queens and a lot of his hack trees, so his macro is pretty much non-existent as well. He's barely able to save this base. What he should have been doing is probably to be reestablishing his economy as fast as possible, given the fact that both players are essentially mined out and have even armies. The armies are going to produce a more of a stalemate situation where both players have a defender's advantage, but neither players have enough army and cannot make enough of an army to attack for a lengthy period of time. Again, Su miscontrolling his army and which units he splits off to deal with different parts of Stats' attacks. If he just sent, he has 26 Hydras, and he did have 26 Hydras while the Phoenixes were over the natural. And if he had sent maybe 5 or 6 Hydralisks, he wouldn't have had to lose so many Mutalisks. So just small micromanagement errors that Su made started to bleed away his army, and this attack also is very lackluster. I don't think Su had to go all in here, because if we take a look at right before this attack occurred, one might say that is premature on Su's part, because so right now Su has a higher, or they both have a relatively even worker count. Neither of their economies are completely trashed. Su has just a small production problem, but he has a lot of money to make up for it. Stats is only on one base right now, maybe 1.5 depending on how much money's left at the third base, and so is Su. They both have even army sizes. Looking at their armies, 26 Hydras, 6 Lurkers, 20 Lings versus 11 Zealots, 5 Archons, 7 Immortals, 3 Phoenixes. I would say that they are pretty even in army value and army composition as well. So that just kind of... So we have to ask the question, why did Su attack here? Was he hitting some sort of timing? No, both players weren't going for a timing of any tech advantage or economic advantage at this point in the game. Was Stats' army out of position? Again, no. Stats' army is at the 4th base where Su inevitably attacks into, so he wasn't getting any advantage from his army being superiorly positioned. So yeah, there really wasn't a decisive reason for Su to attack here. The game could have gone on for a while longer, and Su could have potentially limited Stats' future economy and made a comeback of some sort. But that's to say that Su is behind and needs to make a comeback in the first place. So this attack was, yeah, just Stats being very patient. Stats could have very well have done the same mistake as Su by trying to finish the game, but Stats had a superior experience in the late game and was able to be more patient and aware with what he needed to do with his army, which resulted in Su making really just Stats capitalizing on different decisions that Su made that weren't as effective as Stats, and just a solid way of showing how you can outplay an opponent of Su's caliber from being behind and then just expertly making decisions to come back into the game.